I am loving.
I am fabulous.
I am beautiful.
I am saved.
I am a victor.
I am faithful.
I am devout.
I am accepted.
I am a Christian. I am MCC.
And I am MCC.
I am MCC.
I am MCC.
And I am MCC.
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 Our reading is taken from the book of Daniel, from the Hebrew Testament, the Old Testament, chapter 6, verse 16 to 23. Then the king gave the command, and Daniel was brought and thrown into the den of lions. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you faithfully serve, deliver you." A stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet and the signet of his lords, so that nothing might be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No food was brought to him, and sleep fled from him. Then at break of day, the king got up and hurried to the den of lions. When he came near the den where Daniel was, he cried out anxiously to Daniel, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you faithfully serve, been able to deliver you from the lions?" Daniel then said to the king, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, so that they would not hurt me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no wrong." Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. These human words, God's word is heard. Various biblical characters have stories of being trapped or imprisoned, either for who they are or what they do, or in most cases, both. After all, you cannot separate your identity as a prophet with your prophetic work. And oftentimes, prophets and the apostles, the disciples of Jesus, land themselves in prison or much worse. We continue with our August sermon series titled Trapped, because we are currently trapped, especially now that Metro Manila and the surrounding provinces of Calabarzon, Rizal, and Bulacan have reverted back to MECQ lockdown status. Some of us have heard the statement, "We are all in the middle of the storm, but not all of us are riding the same boat or the same raft." While perhaps many of us are relatively safe in our homes with our families and loved ones, others are not so privileged or as lucky. In the beginning of the lockdown last March 15, I have to admit that there was a part of me that welcomed the lockdown for the first 2 or 3 weeks. Na-happy ako na I am able to stay home for 2 to 3 weeks. Or indefinitely during that time. So during that time, ang feeling ko, in some way, happy ako o blessing na ako ay nasa bahay lang. It was a time of much needed rest. No? Walang Sunday services, yung retreat na cancel, and all wedding schedules were put to a stop to be rescheduled until further notice. On a more personal note and my own confession, I needed the rest. The quarantine gave me the rest that I didn't know I actually needed. Because thinking about it today, I didn't realize at that time that I was actually already burning out, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. Perhaps some people also had the same feelings, not knowing that with not knowing that this pandemic or the lockdown lasting this long and turning out the way that it did in our country. So in a way, privileged ako and others has that condition or situation of privilege. However, it is not the case with other people, especially LGBTQI plus people. To be trapped 24/7 in their homes with conservative, intolerant, and homophobic family members can be compared to the story of the visionary Daniel imprisoned in the den of lions. Lions that can devour him in a matter of minutes. Same can also be said of women and children in homes with violent husbands or partners. In our story, Daniel, a Jew in exile in Babylon, disobeyed the law of the king, who declared that there will be no worship or prayer of any kind, of any other religion other than to worship him, the king, to worship the king as a living God. What we have to understand about Jewish people in ancient times, or maybe even today, in some of the Orthodox Jews, is that their religious practices are not separate or distinct from their racial and national identity. Jews did not perceive religious beliefs and practices the same way we do as Christians, especially today, because most Christians today compartmentalize or put in separate boxes their identities. So for Jews, what they believe and what they do are inseparable to who they are as a people and as an individual. Therefore, it was in no way possible for Daniel and other Jews in Babylon to obey the order or the decree of the king. It is their DNA. It is in their DNA. In the privacy of his own home, he continued to pray facing the direction of Jerusalem 3 times a day. And because he had enemies in the court of the king who knew about Jews and knew that Daniel was a Jew, caught him breaking the law of the king. He was then taken, and by order of the king, reluctant as the king may be, because Daniel was somehow his favorite, Daniel was nonetheless thrown into a den with lions, or a den of lions, inside a den of lions. The den was sealed with a large rock, and upon the rock the royal seal of the king and his lords were placed, to make sure no one opens the den. There are many kinds of imprisonment and of being trapped, especially during this pandemic. But one clear imprisonment is the one experienced by young LGBTQI plus persons trapped in conservative and intolerant homes, as I previously mentioned. The current situation can be likened to being trapped in a den with lions prowling and constantly threatening them. This is not theoretical. This is not speculation, because in our own Community Connect, our Sunday gathering online, we have someone in that very same situation. A young LGBTQI plus person attended and told us how helpless she feels. She tells us precisely that she constantly fears for herself because of her ultra-conservative family and her sibling. Her sibling, who knows about her sexuality and are constantly threatening to out her, i-out siya sa kanilang pamilya. She described her situation in one of our gatherings as, "Hindi ako makahinga," echoing the words of George Floyd months before George was murdered. Another similar testimony was sent to us through our Twitter account just recently. Another young LGBTQI plus person is trapped in their home with her born-again parents. Ang pinagkaiba lang, her parents knows about her sexuality. And they continually tell her and make her feel that she is living in sin for being LGBTQI+. In both cases, they sought out some way and some relief with their friends virtually through communication, and also with our church community upon encountering us online. But even before the pandemic, many of us would have had somewhat similar or familiar experience, memory, or feelings of being trapped or imprisoned with persons or other things that we perceive as threats to our life, threats to our well-being. Such situations and embodied threats caused some of us to live in debilitating fear and repression. We do not have to be literally trapped with intolerant or even violent family members, although some do, as I've already said. Despite being mobile and being able to go to places or live somewhere else before the pandemic or even now, still, some of us live as if we are caged and always looking over our shoulders if the lions are already near and about to catch us. Some people are still trapped in their past and unknowingly fear a lot of things in the present and in their future. I knew of one person who was always haunted by his past, and because of that, he was unable to form or sustain meaningful relationships. It was also his fear of being hurt and rejected, which was brought by some experiences and perhaps traumas from his past. Some of us live in the fear of our family's opinions, the fear of disappointing them if they find out, the fear of being cast out once they knew, the fear of hurting them or being hurt by them, the fear that they will treat you differently once the real and complete, the totality of you is known to them. Perhaps the same fear that Cairo felt in the BL series Game Boys when his parents found out that he was gay. Both love and fear in the context of our families have oftentimes imprisoned many of us and allowed our lives to be dictated and directed either directly by our families or indirectly by our imagined scenarios and what-ifs. Because of that fear, of many fears, whether real or imagined, whether with basis or none, many of us have been jailed. And perhaps some of us are still jailed in a den with lions and other monsters. This can also be translated to the present situation of this pandemic in our country. Many of our kababayans are trapped not only in their homes. Some homes are small homes and congested homes. And they are not only trapped in those homes, but also in conditions that threaten their safety and their lives. Losing their jobs or sources of income, they gamble. They gamble between catching the virus by still trying to find ways to work or earn, or staying at home and go hungry for days. Trapped with monsters inside and outside, deciding for themselves which monster to face in their somewhat imprisoned state. But the thing about the story we have heard today is that despite the threat of death, Daniel stood firm with his identity and its expression, and to whom his identity came from, Yahweh. Surely, like any human, Daniel would have felt fear and desperation upon being caught. It is safe to assume that as a human being, he would have felt terror while being put down into the den with the lions, who would most certainly be hungry and ready to eat the first flesh they see. Certainly Daniel would have even felt helpless being down there and sealed shut. With all the natural emotions and thoughts of fear, despair, terror, and hopelessness, he held on. He held on to God and trusted even more. Now, we don't know exactly what happened inside the den. Daniel tells us that an angel, a divine being, was with him in the den, inside the den. And the angel held the mouths of the lions. The text did not say how many lions, only that it was in the plural form. Lions, so hindi lang iisa. Pwedeng dalawa or more. That's the official written version. That is the story he proclaimed. The story that he proclaimed and wrote about. In a more pragmatic yet speculative sense, I tried to imagine something more probable. Perhaps it was Daniel himself who held the mouths of the lions that they may not devour him. Baka dalawa lang yung lion. And I don't know, hindi naman natin alam kung gaano kalakas o gaano kalaki si Daniel. Baka may kakayanan siyang hawakan o pigilan yung bibig ng mga lions. Perhaps Daniel was capable of facing lions. Daniel was also a member of the Jewish elite. Maybe he knew or heard something about hunting and taming lions, that he was able to use it at that time. Maybe he tried his best to pacify or hold the lions in check. Another possibility is that the lions were indeed hungry. No? Gutom na talaga yung mga leon. Pero baka yung gutom nila ay umabot na sa puntong they were already physically weak. And therefore, Daniel was either able to wrestle with them, or he was able to keep himself constantly at a safe distance, no? Social distancing. He was able to keep himself constantly at a safe distance from the hungry yet physically weak lions. Maybe the lions fought among themselves and each one were hurt badly, and not one of them were able to go about eating Daniel. After all, humans are surprisingly capable of unbelievable skills and strength in the face of real and imminent danger. Regardless whether it was Daniel or an angel coming to his aid, a divine being coming to his aid, in both scenarios, I strongly believe that God was there present, guiding and helping Daniel survive being in a den with dangerous animals. I know that this is also possible with all of us in whatever terrible situation we each are in, whether in this pandemic or in other cases. I know that this is also possible with young LGBTQI+ persons trapped in homophobic and transphobic homes. This is also possible with others who live in constant fear of their loved ones, other people, their past, or many other things. Despite the terror you may be feeling at this very moment, you have both angels and your own God-given inner strength that can help you push through. You have angels, messengers and guides in the person of your friends, family, supportive family if you have, families that are not by blood, and other communities who will help you hold the lion's mouth. You have also your own experiences, skills, knowledge, and your own inner strength, all of which God has gifted you in order to overcome cages and lions you are facing right now. I also know that these things that I have said may not feel or may not make sense, especially when fear and anxiety are overwhelming you at all times. It's okay. It's okay to even disagree with everything that I have just said. I know the feeling of I know that feeling when you are overwhelmed with fear and anxiety. But I hope, and my prayer is that you will hold on ever so tightly. Kapit. No? Kapit lang. You will not give up. I hope that you will not give up no matter how difficult or afraid you are. Now, I have been watching this really good series titled The 100, and a teacher said to his 100, or actually 99 young students, that what will keep them alive and help them survive in any hostile environment on earth is actually the resolve to never give up. He says further that the minute that they give up is the very minute that they will surely fail or will surely die. So I say the same thing. Never give up. Never give up. Despite being trapped right now, in whatever way you are trapped in this pandemic or in other situations, in other contexts, keep holding on. Keep holding on. Never give up. Keep holding on to a vision of a better future, that things will change. You will not always be in your cage. You will not always be in the den. And you will not always be trapped in your chains. You will not always be facing lions or dragons or whatever other dangerous animals that constantly threatens you or makes you feel unsafe. Hold on and keep the faith. Hold on and believe that God is with you, because like Daniel, you are not alone. You are never alone. Our ancestors have overcome the same and even greater challenges of being imprisoned or facing greater monsters. Prophets did not stay in dens, cisterns, and even the belly of a large fish. The apostles and other disciples did not remain in chains, did not remain in prison. Jesus did not stay inside the tomb. They got out and continued their prophetic and missionary work. They continued speaking in the name of Yahweh and continued to proclaim the good news. 2,000 plus years after, we still have their stories and their message of hope with us. You will lose and you will fail. You will be devoured by lions or rot in your cell only if you give up and let go of hope. Therefore, keep on hoping, keep on believing, keep on trusting. Someday, one day, you and many others will overcome lions and get out of dens. You will escape your trappings and your chains. One day, you will no longer live in fear and terror. You will get through this pandemic, and we will celebrate together. One day, you will look back and realize God was always there with you in your darkest and most fearful of times. Like Daniel, you and others will live to tell the story and proclaim God's miracle and good news. And so may God, who saved Daniel, be with you and guide you even in your most painful and darkest of times. May Christ, through the Holy Spirit, keep the fire of hope burning in your hearts until that same hope becomes fulfilled. Amen.